It's time. It's episode 64 of the ATM podcast. Martin Devlin, Mark Watson, who commentates sport all over the world. International acclaim received for gold medal performances behind the microphone. Let's talk some Black Caps, Bangladesh. Is this going to be our worst ever Test series defeat? Phoenix going great guns. Is there ever going to be another Commonwealth Games? Ten Hag has lost the dressing room. Those Man United playing prats have decided that they don't like the coach, Watto. Let's talk about that.
Apologise to me!
Beauden Barrett re-signing for New Zealand Rugby, and yesterday Chris Landrum heralded this is working. He said this is absolutely the best example of how we can never relax the eligibility rules for All Blacks. And how the hell can that guy honestly look himself in the mirror and stand there and spout this crap when Beauden Barrett's not playing in New Zealand, Mark? That's the whole point. He's missing the Super Rugby competition.
Oh, I know. Look, I just want someone from New Zealand Rugby to actually just stand up and actually say to us and admit to us that the game is in crisis. Here is the strategic plan, and actually go back retrospectively, historically, and say, well, look, we all know what the NPC now looks like. We've got Wellington now moving out of stadiums and playing at Porirua Park, and I'd imagine Auckland, everybody else is going to follow suit, such as the lack of interest. And then for some reason, they still believe that Super Rugby is this premier product, that it's the world's greatest rugby product outside of international rugby, and it's not. And the fact that you have people like News Hub jumping up and down and saying that, hey, Beauden Barrett's, it's going to save Super Rugby. It's just dumb stuff, and it's just poor governance from the board, and it's poor leadership. Look, you're right. I mean, Sam Cane, our All Black captain, not playing. Artie Sevian not playing. Beauden Barrett not playing. And this is in addition to a large group of players who've either retired from rugby after the World Cup or permanently heading offshore. So in a year where it's going to be a constant rebuild, our players that technically are available but have decided to take the money overseas are not available either. And you've got a competition where Australia are weak. We no longer have South Africa. And you're trying to tell me that somehow next year's Super Rugby is going to be appointment viewing. It's going to be the default setting at night, and we're all going to get excited and we're all looking forward to it. I mean, there might be a degree of that amongst some people, but compared to what we once had to where we are is just an absolute joke.
Look,
Martin.
Don't forget also that this is an administration that spend millions, and that is millions because his salary was at least $1 million every year, hiring Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, thinking he was the answer and he was going to put eyes on the prize and bums on seats. This is just desperado stuff, isn't it? I mean, I call it the tail wagging the dog. And good on Beauden Barrett. Good on any player that signs this kind of deal, because as an employee, if you can get your employer to go, okay, yeah, for 6 months, you can bugger off and take a much better pay packet over there and we'll keep your job for you. Crikey dick, every single person put their hand up and take it. But New Zealand Rugby, you've lost the plot. How does this in any way enhance Super Rugby? I'm so with you, Mark. It doesn't. The guy's not playing, Chris. That's what you've signed him up for, not to play in New Zealand, mate. I mean, I don't care what happens in 2 years' time, Mark. 2 years' time, we've got another shite Super Rugby season to absorb.
Yeah, I know, but look, he had a sabbatical in Japan only a few years ago. I mean, how many more sabbaticals do you need? I mean, what is the definition of sabbatical? It's not a definition of sabbatical. It's a break from New Zealand rugby. It's a cash grab. But look, you look at the financial state of the unions around the country. We look at the facilities, and you've only got to go and talk to the Ponsonby rugby clubs, and arguably the most successful club in New Zealand. They struggle to get decent floodlights. They still haven't got a home ground after Western Springs was washed out in the floods and the storms. And here we are deciding that we want to go and spend, you said it, be well and truly above $1 million a year on Beauden Barrett. To me, a player, and I say this, a player that I still believe is past his use-by date. I don't think he's going to get better. I think he's only going to get worse. We're still not sure what position he plays. I think under Scott Robertson, he's definitely going to be back in the first five type role. But what are we then doing in terms of the development of our next first fives? So we have Richie Mwanga, and then we have Beauden Barrett. And so what? In 3 years' time, we're back in the same position. We've brought no depth through. I think one of the most successful eras in All Black Rugby came off the back of the Baby Blacks, came off the back of taking some chances on some younger guys. Now, who are those younger guys? I'd still like to see Stephen Perifetta being given a decent chance in the 10 jersey. I think when he has played, he's looked absolutely magnificent. But it comes down to this. It comes back down to this whole economic thing of, opportunity cost. Where could we be better spending that money? Is really Beauden Barrett box office? Does he really bring people in? I mean, as an Auckland fan, I just actually have disdain for him because, yes, I just feel like he's using us. Well, I want to come back and play for the Blues, but not really. I need to take my cash grab first. I just felt with him, he's sort of been in and out of the Blues. He doesn't put bums on seats, mate. We don't win a lot of All Black tests in the last 4 years with Beauden Barrett part of this All Black team. I just can't understand what the fascination is, mate. Now, if you're talking Scott Barrett, I'm on board. Scott Barrett, to me, is the next 4 years. Beauden Barrett, sorry, don't buy into it.
Apologise to me!
Commonwealth Games speak in 4 years. Gold Coast pull out, and that is on the back of Victoria pulling out, on the back of Durban pulling out, because that's why Birmingham hosted. Now, Alberta have pulled out in 2030. No one seems to have the hand up at the moment wanting to host this event. Is it dead, Mark, or not?
Well, put it this way, Gold Coast hosted it in 2018. They have a lot more facilities in place than we have, and it was still going to cost them $700 million. So if someone like New Zealand wants to pick it up, you are probably looking at a minimum of $2 to $3 billion. Now, again, look at where that money could be better spent in terms of other aspects of society, in terms of just roads as an example, or economic hardship, however you want to look at it. I do think it's probably done its time. I'm not sure it's the international event it once was. I've said this in the past. The problem now is that sports like track and field have their own world championships. Take the marathon. There are just so many marathons around the world where there's decent money up for grabs. There's a lot of prestige, and turning up to try and win a Commonwealth Games medal in the marathon when literally you've got about 4 athletes on the start line just no longer has any credibility, in my opinion. I think swimming to a degree, you've still got Great Britain, you've got Canada, you've got Australia, who are a powerhouse. But even then, we see our athletes winning silvers and golds in the Commonwealth only to go to the Olympics and get absolutely destroyed. So is there the depth? Is there the quality? Is there the prestige that once was with it? Probably not. The sports I think that ultimately end up missing out are sports like netball and lawn bowls, where it is genuinely their pinnacle event. It is their Olympic Games. It is their ultimate shop window, even more so than the World Championships, I think. And so those sports do miss out. I'm not sure what the solution is here. If you've got all the facilities and it's still going to cost someone $700 million to host it, look, I think it is dead and buried. Look, Martin, I was recently up in Asia and I was doing the Asian Para Games in a city called Hongshu. And this is the Para Games, for Asia, which have only been going, 4 times now. And you just see the facilities they have up there. I was lucky enough to do the closing ceremony. It was the most spectacular thing I've ever seen and witnessed. And again, for the Asian Para Games, not the Olympic Games. And yet it surpassed anything I've seen at an Olympic Games. And you go, how are people supposed to reach that standard if that's the new standard, if that's the new expectation, if that's what viewers around the world are wanting and hoping to see? And I just sat there and I thought, there's no way in hell New Zealand can ever host anything to this degree to even remotely match what these guys have done. And this is an event really on a world scale by Asian standards, is still at a very sort of micro level. So sadly, I think it is done. I just think these days there's just too much political pressure on where you could spend that money, unless somebody can come in and you can do it privately and you can put a case in point to say, hey, we can get a return on investment here, we can make a profit. Look, there have been some Olympic Games, Sydney case in point, where organisers have turned a profit, but I think those days are gone. I think it's wrong when you say, look at the economic benefits that an event like this brings in, but it's got to be new money. People that are living here go to the Commonwealth Games, they're just spending money on the Commonwealth Games that they probably would have spent elsewhere.
Let's talk about the Bangladesh series. Is this going to be the worst result ever if we lose to Bangladesh 2-0? I can't think of a New Zealand cricket side that has lost another series that we would be sitting here even using the same language around. Bangladesh we should be beating, shouldn't we, Mark?
I think so. I think they're still international minnows, though going through their record. I see they have had a test victory over Australia. They've had a test victory over England previously. What I will say is I remember in 1983 going to Eden Park and watching Sri Lanka when they were here. I think Dilip Mendis might have been captain. I remember Jeff Crow hitting a 6 off the very last ball to bring up 300 in a one-day game, and they were genuinely international minnows. And then clearly 13 years later, they win the Cricket World Cup and they're an established test nation. I don't think Bangladesh are far away from sort of replicating maybe what Zimbabwe did in the early 1990s and what Sri Lanka, did. But yeah, as a test playing nation, I expect us to beat Bangladesh. But it also just demonstrates how conservative we are in our approach. We're not taking any risks with selection. Ravindra should be in that side based on what he did at the World Cup. And we just don't seem to hold our cricketers to the same account as we do with our All Blacks. And maybe because they just don't have a legacy, we just don't have that expectation on them, and we just don't ask enough questions. And I think there is a level of apathy. I mean, to be honest, I'm aware we're playing in Bangladesh, but I'm not going out of my way to watch it at the moment, Martin. Would it be one of our worst performances? Look, I think any time playing in the subcontinent is hard. I think arguably our worst result was when Bangladesh beat us here last summer in New Zealand.
Yeah, thrashed us by 8 wickets,
Apologise to me!
A couple of quick things to talk about. Ten Hag has lost the dressing room. I'm just sick of these Man United whinges, mate. I mean, you don't deserve to wear a red jersey. And talking about how the manager's training you too hard and you're running too hard in training. Well, you're not running hard on the pitch. This is the generation that we have bred. And I'm just sick to the core. I've been a United fan since 75 as well, And these posers and these pretenders and these Instagram ponies who wear a red jersey but have never achieved anything in that jersey. Shut up, chase back, win a tackle, challenge for the ball, compete for 90 minutes, and then maybe start talking.
Yeah, look, I think the best guy that sums it up is Roy Keane. He's a wonderful pundit with Sky Television over there, former United great, and he's got zero time for fools. He's got zero time for prima donnas. I mean, yeah, it's amazing that, with such a rich history with Manchester United, along with Liverpool, the most successful clubs, that, it should just be automatic. You put that Manchester United jersey on, you don't own the number, you don't own the jersey. You're simply a custodian. You're simply having it passed down from one great, and hopefully you leave it in a better place than when you first put it on. But we've got into there are some managers clearly Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, who seem to be able to get the best out of players and seem to be able to avoid this sort of me prima donna mentality that does exist in a lot of football teams. I'm not sure what the answer is for Manchester United.
Not that you care. No.
You can't. But you can't just keep changing managers until you find the right managers. Sometimes you've just got to sack the players, don't you? Well, we had that argument around Ian Foster. I know you put that argument forward at times, saying, "Well, look, we can blame Ian Foster all we want, but you still ultimately, the players are the ones out there doing it, and maybe they need to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror." Look, I just think clubs, right from the very top, have just got to start making a statement, making a scapegoat, not a scapegoat, making an example of some of these guys and just moving them on. But you know what is going to happen? Erik ten Hag's going to go. He is going to get sacked. You're going to have a new manager sometime in the next 2 months. I think that's just inevitable. And it's like the old thing, isn't it? You can take people out of a ghetto, put them in a new housing estate, and within 2 weeks it's a ghetto again. So yeah, I'm not sure what the solution is, but we play you guys, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. And what was the score last time we played you?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was 7-0, wasn't it, Martin? Let us finish on the old chestnut, the pay parity debate again. Which look, my beef now is with the national sports media who run these stories verbatim like they have some kind of justification. I look at all of those reporters who covered the story about the vice captain of the Phoenix women's side quitting. She's got a mortgage in Auckland. She rents in Wellington. She reckons she can't make ends meet. I ask all of these same reporters, do you turn around to your bosses and say, that woman there in the office deserves a much bigger pay rise. We don't have any money. Well, this is the same argument, isn't it? You can't just produce money from nowhere. You've got to have some kind of an economic foundation. A business is a professional entity, therefore you need to be able to cover your costs and you can't keep losing money. I watched Alice Soper, rent-a-quote Alice Soper on the TV the other day, and her argument was, they're already losing money, so what difference does it make if they lose more money? And yet, whoever was interviewing her didn't turn around and say, so every week when you do your own budget, you pay your rent or your mortgage and you're actually down $500 because you're donating it to somebody else and you're quite happy at the end of the year, you're down $25,000. How long does that last before eventually you have to do something about it? It's just ridiculous, isn't it, Mark? At some stage, somebody has just got to actually apply some common sense and say, look, we all want more money, but it's got to come from somewhere. If your product isn't being watched and being sold and earning money, you can't get paid more money. That's just life.
I agree, and it's a privately run enterprise too. It's like Martin, but I keep saying this. I just want the Sky cameras next time they're on a game just to zoom in and see if we can see Alice Soper in the crowd along with a whole lot of these other female journalists, and just wonder where they all are, because they're very good at preaching, not very good at practicing. I'll keep coming back to it. Don't talk about, we should just pay them anyway, the men get the same, and try and play this parity argument. You go, hang on a minute. what about the 2.5 million women in this country? Why aren't you addressing them? Why aren't you talking to them? Why aren't you actually going? Why aren't you going along? Maybe they're not going along because just perhaps the product's not that good. Just perhaps the quality of football is not very good. I mean, look, Martin, I chased a dream of wanting to represent my country. I got involved in the sport of triathlon, mate. I chased it hard. I trained hard. I had my frailties when it came to race day. I trained with a lot of guys, mate. I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew that I was probably delaying my life by 10 years in terms of, getting myself on the economic sort of ladder. But I did it because I loved it. And I knew that at the end of the day, if I wanted to make a living, well, I had to try and win races, or I had to try and go out there and get sponsorship. And sponsorship came by being really, really good. But, mate, I did it because I loved it. I did it because I couldn't place a value on a black singlet. I did it because I wanted to go to the Hawaii Ironman, and I wanted to travel. I wanted to do some of the great races. And I did it because I had this incredible mateship with guys who were world class. And I never at one point thought to myself, oh, poor me, I should be getting paid because I'm doing this full time. You've made a choice. You know the economic model when you come into this, Martin. It's just not automatic. There are people out there who are going to university to become heart surgeons who leave with $200,000 in debt. They have the ability to save your life, my life, your kids' lives. They're the nearest thing to God on earth we've got, and they actually have to work their asses off, and they genuinely contribute, and they eventually do get there. And yet we've got some footballers or whatever sport it is, and everyone's going, oh, poor me, I should get paid more because look what I'm doing. Look at the sacrifice. I guarantee half these people turn up to training late. They don't even put their heart and soul into a lot of it. And all they're doing, mate, is looking for some way of shifting the blame away from their own lack of professionalism or their own lack of securities, or more importantly, actually, you know what? They don't actually have a real desire to do it. If you really want to make a living, be the best you can be and try and pick a contract up in the EPL. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, how some of the women now in the EPL are actually starting to earn a good living. Why? Because crowds are starting to turn up. There's a TV model in place, and the standard of football's actually good, and they've actually earned that right. But this sort of socialist economic model we want in sport is just, it's just appalling, and it needs to stop. And I tell you what, I want these people that write these articles to buy the season tickets, show us the model, turn up every week, bring their mates along, and spread the damn word, Martin.
Devlin.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The Platform.